I'm Joe Duffy, CEO of OffshoreInsiders.com. We always hear about this bipartisanship, how we'd love to have both parties work together in Washington. Be careful what you ask for. We've gotten bipartisanship. Bipartisan hypocrisy when it comes to gambling rights. A few years back, BetOnSports was attacked by the Department of Justice, and then they passed the so-called Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act. And then all the alarmists said, oh, it's the big right-wingers. We've got to start electing more Democrats if we want to have gambling rights. Well, since then, we elected a very liberal president, and we've gone through a couple new sessions of Congress. How did that hope and change work out? Not too well. That's right. Now the Democrats, which like to preach choice as a buzzword and have this moral relevancy, well, we can't really judge the actions by others, are just like the Republican Party, which the Republican Party preaches new streams of revenue, personal responsibility, and pro-business. Now the Democrats and the Republicans alike, for whatever reason, oppose your gambling rights. Now, I'm unlike most Americans. Most Americans like to criticize the party or the philosophy that they disagree with most. I always hold the officials that I want elected and that I do vote for to a much higher standard. I am a conservative. I don't like to call myself a Democrat or Republican because that's really, you've got Republicans, for example, in the North or sometimes to the left of Democrats here in the South, as I am in the Atlanta, the international headquarters of OffshoreInsiders.com. But I am a conservative, but a non-religious conservative. And here is an appeal and quite a few rhetorical questions to my fellow conservatives out there, especially those who are holding elected office. Now, I keep hearing from so-called conservatives that they're opposed to gambling because it's got all these social consequences. Well, you're right. There are these consequences and these societal consequences. For example, those speculators, the people who gamble on oil futures, they've driven the price up to $5 a gallon, and I hear a lot of people saying it's going to be at least $6 per gallon this summer. So yes, the Wall Street casino gamblers, there are societal ramifications. But yet, that kind of gambling is perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal to gamble on futures, commodities, and on Wall Street. And of course, we know those bankers that decided to gamble on people who had absolutely no right getting a loan. And as a result of that lost gamble, the societal effects that it's had as we are in the worst economy since the Great Depression. And I keep hearing about, well, it's going to hurt family values. Some of my fellow conservatives, the religious conservatives, the social conservatives, not the economic conservatives, will tell you that. You're right. It has definitely had a great effect on my family, the value of taking trips in a car, paying $5 per gallon, and by the time we take our vacations this summer, it's probably going to be $6 per gallon. So you are right. Those people who gamble at the dangerous Wall Street casino do have a great effect on my family's values. Now, there have been all kinds of studies, Price Waterhouse among them, that said if we allow perfectly legal across-the-board gambling, online gambling, it's going to bring billions of dollars into our economy. It would actually create jobs. Now, would it possibly create more gambling addicts? Maybe, but as a true conservative, I believe in personal responsibility. Just like the first prohibition, in theory, probably would have meant fewer alcoholics. And if we outlawed credit cards, one of the worst vices out there, it would probably mean fewer people were addicted to spending money. It would be good for shopaholics. But somewhere along the line, personal responsibility comes into it. So why can't I sit at home and play a couple hands of poker or my preferred poison, betting on sporting events, in which I win a lot more than I lose? Again, instead of just simply raising taxes, we could come up with new forms of revenue, like gambling. Oh, and by the way, it is gambling. in the state lotteries, for example, in church bingo parlors, but I know that churches are pretty powerful, especially to my fellow conservatives who are more religious conservatives, but I don't see you wanting to ban gambling at the churches. Las Vegas, Atlantic City, of course, sports betting isn't legal yet in Atlantic City, and the worst and most risky form of gambling anywhere, Wall Street. So let's end the bipartisan hypocrisy and let's allow online gambling. And I appeal especially to the true conservatives out there. Let's practice what we preach: personal responsibility, being pro-business, and creating new forms of tax revenue instead of raising taxes. I'm Joe Duffy, CEO of OffshoreInsiders.com, and I approve this message.